Hello, welcome back. I'm Andy. This is tomorrow's teaching, and we are in our Python course, this time, 7th section on conditionals, conditional statements that allow your program to do things differently depending on the value of some variable. So conditionals obviously are very important because they make a program flexible. Until now, we had only programs that run from the top to the bottom, always the same, nothing changes. But the whole point of a computer program is that it can do something if some condition is given, or do something else if the condition is not true. And so you need some way of branching, right? Of telling the program, if this thing is the case, I want to go here, otherwise I want to go there. In the easiest case, you can imagine it, right? Like a dialog box that says, print or cancel or something like this. And so if the user clicks print, then you want to print. If the user says cancel, you want to cancel. And that's a very important thing in a computer program, to be flexible in this way. So this moves beyond simple programs that always do the same thing and allows you to make more interesting and useful applications. Okay, let's see how this works. The simplest form of a conditional is an if statement. It checks if a condition is true, and if so, executes a block of code. And let's look how this looks like here. In Python, you don't have a then. In many other programming languages, you have an if something then something. Python doesn't have a then. It replaces the then with a colon, with these two dots. And so you are writing if, then your condition, let's say if 2 is greater than 1, then what, and the colon, says then, and then you write what's going to happen then. And the important thing is that you have this indentation in the next line. The print is more right on the line than the if. That's very important, because Python actually looks at this space, at the white space before print. If you did not have the indentation, then it would not know where the if begins and ends in your program. So you really have to indent those conditional blocks. You have to leave the space. It doesn't matter how much space you leave. Normally you would leave like 2 spaces or 4 spaces depending on your programming style, right? In this case, it's 2 spaces here. This is a pretty common way to do it. 1 space is too little because then you cannot see it, right? If you have a big program indented only, almost by 1 space, is very hard to see. 4, if it's okay, 4 is good to see, or 3. But if you have very strongly indented programs, sometimes you have multiple levels of indentation. You have an if within an if within an if, and within it, also loops and so on, everything indented. So at some point, it runs out of your screen to the right side, and then it's also inconvenient to use. So most people will probably use something like 2 spaces, because this is still clearly visible, but it does not make your program, run away to the right out of the screen. And so in this case, yes, you see 2 is greater than 1, so we expect this program to do what? We expect it to print. That's obvious. So let's try if this happens. Let me start it, Control Enter. And now again, this will take a moment because this notebook is not yet connected to a Python instance. The previous one was, but this here is not. So now it says that's obvious. I can change the condition. I can say if, let's say, if 1 is greater 1, which it is not, right? So now if I execute it, nothing is printed, right? Because 1 is not greater than 1, but 2 is greater than 1, okay? So here we go. This is how the basic if works. And now you can use it for all kinds of things. And there is also another extension of this. You can use an else block. The else block is executed if the if block is false. So sometimes you want, if your condition is not fulfilled, you want to do something else rather than just doing nothing. And this is what the else block does. So you handle cases where if the condition is not met, you do what the else block wants. And let us see how this works. You see it here in this next example. If 2 is greater 1, then print it's obvious. Else, print the condition is false. And then print, this is my program after the if statement. Now this shows you what happens with the indentations and these blocks, right? If 2 is greater than 1, then it executes what comes after the colon. Print, this is obvious. And this is indented to show you Aha, that's what will happen. The else is not indented because it belongs to the if. It's not going to be executed if the condition is true. It's going to be executed else. So it goes on the same level as the if. And then within the else, again, you have an indented block that tells you what is part of the else. But then the next print, the last print, this is a program after the if statement. This is not indented because now this is where the execution of my program continues, as if the whole if block did not exist, right? If the if had not existed at all, this print would be the same. It's on the same level as the if, so it's going to be executed anyway, right? And we can see this. Let's try it out. Let me click in here and execute that. And you see that's obvious. And then this is my program after the if statement. And this would even happen if I had here, if 1 is greater 1, which is not the case, the condition is false. This is my program after the if statement. So what you see is that the last statement, this is my program after the if statement, is executed in any case, in both cases, because it's outside the if, because it's not indented, right? But if I added the two spaces here, now I've taken it into the else block. So if I execute it now, it says that's obvious, and it does not print this next statement, right? So that's very important. Now it will be printed again, right? So you see what the indentation is doing. It tells it where are the limits of the if, where are the limits of the end. So this is a very common source of errors. The indentation in Python, especially when copying code, very long programs, you must be very intentional about how you use it. You must also be aware of your indentations. Often with the copying, the indentation can move, right? And then you need to fix it. Now, most useful are the conditional statements if we use them together with variables. Look at this code here. So what will this code do? First, I assign 1 to the variable number. Number now has the value 1. If number greater 1, print number is greater than 1, else print the condition is false, and then print this is my program after the if statement. So what will this do? Try to think of it before you execute it for a moment. Stop the video perhaps, have a look at it. What will it do? If number is greater than 1, it will print number is greater than 1, but 1 is not greater than 1, so it will say the condition is false, and it will also print the statement at the end. The condition is false. This is my program after the if statement. Right? Should make sense now. Now here we have a slightly different. It's the same program, but a different value in number. Now number is 2. And so what will this do? Try to guess and then continue the video. 2 is greater than 1, and then this is my program after the if statement. Again, make sure you understand why this is the case. And of course, now you can combine conditionals with input statements. So you get some value from the user, and then you use this in order to do something or not do something. So here I have a variable a, and then assign it the input from the user, input, enter a number. I take the number from the user, put it into the variable a, and then I say if a greater 10, print greater 10, or else print smaller than 10. And so I can do different things depending on what the user entered. So let's try this out. I'm executing it, control enter, enter a number, let's say 15, and enter is greater than 10. Let's execute it again, and number 6 is smaller than 10. Right? I hope you can see how this works. So this is very powerful, right? With this now we have almost everything we need to write any computer program in principle. We can get information from the user, and we can conditionally process it within our program depending on what the user entered. We can do different things with it. And these are all the basics we need in order to write computer programs. So from now on, what we will do, the rest of Python, is just to make things easier for us. to give us more high-level instructions where we can do things. But in principle, and the first computers were like this, you can calculate everything just by using, input, output, and an if statement and variables. To make things more convenient now for us, we also have an elif statement. Elif is perhaps a little unfortunate way of putting it. I would have perhaps preferred it to be called else if, would make more sense. Anyway, somebody was lazy, didn't want to type so much. Elif. This is for situations with more than two possible outcomes, and this allows you to chain ifs. So you can say, look at the next example. I input my name, and if my name is Andy, right, then it says it's you welcome. Elif, and this is an else and an if together. Else, if my name is John, then it says, John, you have a message. Else, it says, I don't know you. Right? So the elif is nothing but an else and an if. In principle, I could construct it by chaining multiple ifs, one under the other, but then again it would be more blocking to the right and moving to the right every time with indentations. It would be a little more difficult to see. This is more convenient. I just can say elif, 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 as many as I want, until the last one is an else, which catches all the other cases. And one more thing to look at here is this comparison sign, this here, which is the two equal signs. So you remember one equal sign is the assignment. I put a value into a variable. And when I use two, then I'm not putting in anything into the variable. I am asking if the variable has this value or not. So this is a comparison. And these are two different operations, right? You need to keep this clear in your mind, because if I use the assignment here and said if name one equal sign Andy, then in some programming languages, in Python it won't work, but in C, for example, it would actually override name with Andy. So it would always be true, because you are not comparing, you are assigning. Python is intelligent enough to catch this, but they're really two different operations, right? Whether you say, I want to assign something or I want to compare something without assigning. And so here we want to compare without assigning. So unfortunately, this is another complication you have to always keep in mind to use the right sign. So it's crucial to understand, look at the text, the difference between the assignment and the comparison. A single equal sign is used to assign a value, number is 42. A double equal sign is used to compare if number is equal 42. Confusing these two is a common mistake. In Python, using a single equal sign in an if statement will raise an error, which prevents the bug, which you would otherwise in C, you would be able to do it in other programming languages. Here you cannot. Let me show you. I did this here, right? You see the first line says number equals 42, is assigned 42, and the second says if number is equal 42. So this now works, but if I remove this here and try to do it like this, I get an error, right? Invalid syntax. Maybe you meant comparison instead of assignment. Okay, so that was it. Now we have the basic conditional. So next time we will talk about loops in our Python program. Thank you and see you next time. Bye-bye.